February 20th, 6 p.m. Darlene, you want to, anybody that has a statement they would like to make for just a comment, public comment or anything, I need a speaker slip. You need to give it to Darlene, and we can go from there. Otherwise, you can fill out a speaker slip for whatever business item we have that you might have a question on, and you can discuss that. Okay, you want to give us a roll call?
Sure. Councilmember Cervantes?
Here.
Councilmember Manley?
Here.
Councilmember Molina?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hewitt?
Here.
Mayor Davis?
I'm here. Then we've got City Manager Cobo, City Attorney Ennis, welcome back. City Clerk Gertis, Finance Director Reed, Planning Director Lucia, Public Works Director Monson. Would you have to bring the rain with you? City Engineer Thornton, Fire Chief O'Connell, and Sheriff Lieutenant Olson. Welcome back. You got the short straw tonight, huh? Mr. Manley, you want to lead us in the pledge?
Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
We have one communication from the public. Blake?
Can you hear me? Okay. A couple questions. Recently, there hasn't been the public meetings streamed on Facebook, and I just want to know, was there a change of policy with that, or was, what's going on with that? I hope, we can use that tool to be utilized correctly, because that Facebook can reach thousands of residents, but now it appears it's only being streamed on YouTube, and now the views are drastically limited and decreased. And I just wanted to see, was there a change of policy or anything like that? And then also Roberts Road, I just want to see when is that going to be completed? Because from my understanding is the approval of that was the developer was going to complete Roberts Road, but appears like construction has stopped prior to the weather. And I just want to see, where's the follow-up with the city to make sure that that road's completed by the developer? Thank you.
Approval of the agenda, consent calendar, and waiver of full reading of ordinances. Get a motion?
I'll make that motion that we approve the agenda and the consent calendar and the full waiver of ordinances.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's, anybody complain or hearing none? That's 5-0. Okay, Calamasa Chamber of Commerce reports.
Well, good evening, council and staff. I just want to briefly, before I hit the chamber, touch on the Lions Club Myrtlewood project to let you know that I met with Mari and Eric, and they've agreed to bring over some more stones for the Myrtlewood Island and place them there. Some stones, I guess, that are right now in piles over off of Sandalwood. So we're going to get some more stones in that decorated center. And then we purchased more of the agave, the metal agave plants, the larger sized ones. because we got a little feedback on that the smaller ones didn't look really that great. And my wife has stated that we need to place them in a better arrangement, so we'll be doing that. So I'll be working with planning to get a day where we can close off just one of the lanes, you know, on this, so that we can park our trucks there and mix the concrete for planting for setting the agave plants in place. Is there any comments or anything the council has about what the Lions have done so far at Myrtlewood?
I think it's being actually maintained pretty well as far as with the rains and everything else. It's been holding up pretty good.
Yeah, there are some spots where we had to go through and rake out where people have ridden their bikes through, or you know, when you first put that DG down, it's soft. And the really nice part about it is timing, because we've had some nice rains and that helps pack that DG down and make it pretty hard. So we're looking forward to when you can walk on it and really not make any dents in it.
Yeah.
So, anything else? Okay. I'll go ahead and start with the chamber. Our breakfast meeting last month, we had Judicial Commissioner for Riverside County, Elizabeth Tucker, as our guest speaker, and she did quite a good job. Though some of her questions she had to like bounce around some of the questions that were asked of her, probably because she didn't feel it was appropriate to answer those in her position. But she is trying to go for election as a judge, from a commissioner to a judge. One of the things she shared with us was the difference between a judicial commissioner and an actual Superior Court judge. So it was quite interesting to hear her speak. Our next speaker will be at our breakfast meeting on March 12th at 7:30 in the morning at Cafe Royale, and our guest is Mary Ruther. She is the owner-operator of Soaring Swine in Yucaipa, and I understand she has a pretty interesting presentation. We discussed it in our board meeting, what she actually does in her presentations, and she relates colors to how you react to things and and how it kind of explains your personality. So it should be a fairly interesting breakfast. Our installation dinner was on January 25th. We had it at the Plantation of the Lakes Conference Center. We had over 100 people there in attendance. We celebrated the new board members and the accomplishments of some great people in the community. Our firefighter of the year, our sheriff deputy of the year, and then of course our citizen of the year. So that was a good turnout and a really nice event. Upcoming, the Calimesa Chamber of Commerce is currently accepting scholarship applications for the 2024 high school graduates of the San Gregorio Pass area, which includes Calimesa, Beaumont, Yucaipa, Banning, and Cherry Valley. It also includes some of the specialty schools in the area. So we throw out the opportunity for any of the graduating students to apply for our scholarships. At this point, we are at, before grants, we are at about $4,700 in scholarship funding. So we're hoping to get some grants from the county and maybe some donations from some large contributors that have done this in the past, so we can get back to close to another $10,000 worth of scholarships. We were at $9,000 last year. So, and you guys know my feelings on the scholarship. I'd love to be able to give, I think we had, out of those 9 recipients, I would have loved to have been able to give them each $10,000 each for school, because school is so darn expensive now. But that being said, we need to get the scholarship fund. We need the grants and the donations in order to do that. So we have our scholarship tea that will be coming up on May 23rd, and that's where we will announce and give away our scholarships to the recipients. And then the Chamber has formed a foundation, the 501c3. We have our EIN number. We're currently, all the documentation has been placed with the state, and we're waiting for the official letter that they have recognized us. So at this point, it's to allow us to go after grants for projects for the future, which you can't do. A lot of these grants, they won't give it to to charitable organizations that don't have a 501c3. So that's good news for us. Lori O'Connor, the director from Habitat for Humanity, who is on our board, has done a great job with the preparing and filing for our 501c3. Currently, this month we've had 3 new members join us. We've also had 3 new renewals, and our total membership after auditing is now at 130. Any questions on the chamber?
So you said after auditing, how many did you have before the audit?
We were, so we were at one, like last month, it was like 145, but we audited on who hasn't renewed and who has kind of just dropped off the face of the earth from us. And so the new numbers are down, yeah, they are down to 130, but these are 130 actual paid members. Okay, so we expect to still receive more renewals this month because we sent out the letters and the emails to those members. A lot of times it's just that they get the email, they go, oh yeah, I got to do that, and then it's set on that back burner until someone says it again. So I expect it to grow. So yeah.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you, Tony.
All right, thank you guys.
Okay, business items. Number 10, Riverside County Transportation Commission presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Tonight we have Ann Mayer, the Executive Director of the Riverside County Transportation Commission, with us to present their traffic relief plan. This is an update from a plan that was originally adopted back in 2020. Obviously, there was a little thing called COVID that kind of derailed that a little bit. So they kind of reevaluated that plan and have been circulating a draft plan. So Ms. Mayer will be presenting that to you tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. If we could have the PowerPoint presentation come up, that would be great. Again, I'm Ann Mayer, the Executive Director of the Riverside County Transportation Commission. I was trying to think of how long ago it was since I've been, oh, sorry, it's me. There we go. There we go. How long it's been since I've been at a council meeting, and it's been quite a few years since I was here last, so it's a real pleasure to be here this evening. I have to admit the fact that I moved up here 34 years ago, and while I don't live in Calimesa, I live a stone's throw across County Line Road from Calimesa. This is the part of town, part of Riverside that I call home, so it's always nice to be up here visiting with all of you. So as Will said, RCTC is in the process of updating our 2020 traffic relief plan that was approved. A draft has been out for review, so my goal this evening is to review with you the plans. First, start out talking a little bit about RCTC, but to talk about the plan, and our goal is to seek your input and your community's input on the plan that we have for the future. So first off, let me start with, while many of you may know who RCTC is and what RCTC does, there are a lot of people who don't know. RCTC is the Regional Transportation Planning Agency for Riverside County. We were formed in 1976, and over the years we have acquired a number of new responsibilities. We started out in terms of regional transportation planning. Most state and federal transportation funding flows through RCTC. We also administer the current half-cent sales tax measure, Measure A. So every month, the Calamasa receives a check from RCTC, which is your share of our local sales tax dollars that you can use for local road maintenance. We're one of the Metrolink member agencies, so rail service. We fund the majority of the budgets for all of the 7 transit agencies, and up here you see RTA, Pass Transit also, but again, we've got 7 throughout the county. And one of our most recent responsibilities in the transportation arena is we are the operators of the 91 and I-15 express lanes in Corona, Harupa Valley, and Eastvale. So we've added toll operations to our responsibilities as well. We are governed by a board of 33 elected officials, so a representative from each of the 28 cities. Councilmember Molina is the commissioner representing Calamasa at RCTC, and along with 27 of her peers from other cities and all 5 county supervisors. And there's an ex officio member, and that's the governor's appointee, so the Caltrans District 8 director. So we do have broad representation across the county at the RCTC board. So I've talked a little bit about what we do globally for Riverside County, but specifically examples of things here in Calamasa where you might notice some RCTC engagement. First off, I want to give a shout out to Will and his team. There's really been a lot of coordination over the past several years in helping to make sure we're getting as much money as possible here to Calamasa for some key projects. First off, anyone drive through the Badlands very often and see that beautiful project in the Badlands? That was an RCTC project to make all of those safety improvements in the Badlands. We're really proud of that project. It's really made a difference. We also contribute some funding for some of your pavement rehab projects, and most recently we awarded some regional Measure A money for the Calamasa Boulevard project down at Cherry Valley Interchange, so the first phase of that interchange project. So we've been coordinating frequently with your staff about the city's priorities. I've kind of lost count of the times I've been in conversations about County Line Road, I-10 interchange, Cherry Valley, Singleton, Oak Valley. So there's a lot of conversation taking place about those interchanges, as well as your needs related to local road maintenance. So those are the categories where we engage here up in Calamasa, similar to how we engage across the county. So here on this slide, what we're showing is the results of a public survey that we did in May of 2023. So it was a statistically significant survey. Over 1,200 people within Riverside County, all over the county, were surveyed about their perspectives on transportation. And you can see here that the concerns that people have are pretty significant, and at the top of the list, keeping roads in good condition. I'm guessing that after the rain the past couple of weeks, we're going to be hearing about that even more. Pothole repair, keeping roads in good condition, reducing congestion and traffic jams, improving safety, keeping senior, student, disabled, and veteran bus fares low. You can see all of these items in terms of the public survey that we did. Up over 80% of the people that we surveyed acknowledged that these were critical issues for them. Again, because so many people here in Riverside County depend on the roadway network and the freeway network to get to and from work and everywhere else that they're going. So this public survey that was done validated a lot of the perceptions that we had about the things that people are most concerned with. So as Will mentioned, we had an approved traffic relief plan in 2020, and that had been developed based on almost 5 years worth of public polling, focus groups, conversations at city council meetings, meetings out at chambers of commerce, town hall meetings, municipal advisory committee meetings, where we heard about the priorities that people wanted us to focus on. COVID has changed a lot in some respects. It's changed how people, a lot more people work from home. It's changed commuting patterns. It's changed Metrolink and bus transit ridership. But there's a lot that hasn't changed, and in many cases, some things, including congestion in many areas, is actually worse. So our commission last year instructed us to go out and update the traffic relief plan to not only make sure that the things we had in the plan were right on target with what people think are important, but also that we had additional input from the public because, again, much has changed. So we are in the process of updating the plan. It has over $25 billion worth of transportation investments included in the plan. Each of the council members has a hard copy of the plan itself right in front of you, and I'll cover some of the highlights for it. So it's an ambitious plan. It's an aspirational plan about what the future of Riverside County could be with respect to transportation, but one thing it's not is it's not funded. This plan does not have funding tied to it and would not have funding tied to it unless voters approved additional funding. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So in the plan itself, we have divided the county into 3 geographical areas. Western County, which I've got a map shown up here that basically shows you, Western County is basically Cabazon to the west, Coachella Valley, and then Palo Verde Valley which is Blythe. So the current measure is broken up into those 3 geographic areas, and we've developed a plan for each of them in the traffic relief plan that you're seeing today. I'm only going to be going over the Western County portion for you today. So not only is it split amongst the 3 geographic regions, but the categories that we've included in this plan are the categories that people have identified for us as being the most important, and these have slightly changed since 2020. So we've got safe streets and roads, so safety is a priority, roadway maintenance, sidewalks, pedestrian crossings, pothole repair, bridge repairs, bus shelters, the basics of safe streets and roads that are important to each community. 50% of this category will go back to each of the individual jurisdictions. The highway component is again about traffic relief, and that includes interchanges, freeway operational improvements, and again up in this area, freeway interchanges are probably the single biggest need. Regional connections, we have areas of the county that still only have connection to interstates via 2-lane roads. I'll give Hemet, San Jacinto, for example. If any of you have attempted to go to Hemet, San Jacinto off of I-10 on the 79, it's a pretty challenging trip. So regional connections for those parts of our county that aren't connected is another important category. Public transportation, which includes rail and bus, commuter assistance, the Freeway Service Patrol, van pool program, our car share program, active transportation, trails, bicycle facilities, bike lanes, and environmental mitigation is also an important component of this plan in that much of the work that we do has an impact on the environment, but it's not just about impact on species and bugs and bunnies, it's also about impact on air quality and the state's latest policy requirements to reduce vehicle miles traveled. So
Why is that such a big piece of the pie?
So one of the reasons why it's such a big piece of the pie is that much of the improvements that we need are on roadway and highway systems. And much like you've had to do at the city level for development, where your developers now have to mitigate their development using their impact on vehicle miles traveled. So if a project increases the vehicle miles traveled, you have to mitigate. On highway projects, that's really hard to mitigate if you think about the fact that most highway projects add additional vehicles to the road. That mitigation is expensive. That mitigation could be rail service. That mitigation could be bus service. What we've also included here is some funding related to additional environmental mitigation. That continues to be an issue here in western Riverside County, as well as in the Coachella Valley, as well as air quality. One of the challenges we have, this is a long-term plan, this is a decades-old plan. We are not sure what kind of mitigations would be required in the future, so we've written this category pretty broadly so that any mitigation, anything that falls in the bucket of mitigation for a project is included in this category because we're not sure what it might be in the future. Let me give you an example. The first Measure A, the sole focus on mitigation was on habitat. And that's where the multi-species habitat conservation plan came from. Councilmember Cervantes sits on the RCA board. At that time, that was the only mitigation people talked about. Now, the main mitigation people talk about is vehicle miles traveled, and I don't just mean people, I mean regulatory agencies. Vehicle miles traveled and air quality emissions. So that's why that category is as big as it is. There are projects included in that could also be included in other categories. Like, for example, if we had interchange projects that needed mitigation, a transit project could offset that and be part of the mitigation. So I know that was a long answer, but I hope that helped explain why that category is as large as it is. That is one of the biggest most frequent questions we get is, why is the environmental mitigation category so large? And the answer is, we may not be able to do all of the other things if we don't mitigate.
Well, I see people coming from out of state to work for corporations and companies, environmental, where they're making minimum wage someplace else, and then they come over here and make 50, 60 bucks an hour. You know, and I've seen projects, you know, like a $600 million project that the biggest cost of it was environmental. On
Average, environmental mitigation on a transportation project is about 5%.
Is what?
About 5% of the project cost. So if we look at a normal transportation project.
I can accept that.
Yeah,
I can't accept 33% or 40%, but it seems like that's the way it seems to come out anymore.
On transportation projects, it's generally not that high. And again, here in that category for environmental mitigation, it could include providing more transit service as a mitigation. So it's not just about buying habitat or, you know, doing anything with species. It is directly about trying to mitigate vehicle miles traveled. And it's usually going to mean improving rail and bus transit.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me give you some examples of projects up here in your area. Again, I've already mentioned the I-10 County Line Road project. I hope I hope it's built before I move away from this area. That's my interchange too. But really important examples here that are included in the plan. So I-10 County Line Road interchange, your Cherry Valley Boulevard interchange. We are at a point with interchanges, especially along I-10, which most of these interchanges, I don't need to tell you, have not been touched since they were built. These interchanges are now in the $50 to $125 million range. This is how expensive interchanges are getting to construct. So the I-10 interchanges, not just in Calamasa, but along the I-10 corridor, are highlighted throughout this plan. In addition to the interchanges, we are also exploring, at the request of commissioners, the concept of having express lanes on I-10 between State Route 60 and 111. We're currently evaluating those to see if they're feasible to do. I think You know, a lot of people probably right now are saying, why would we have express lanes out here on I-10? And part of the answer is one of the only ways that we will get approval at the state level for widening of freeways is if it's pricing and if they're express lanes. The state policies at this point are no more freeway widening. So express lanes are probably going to have to be what the options will be specifically along I-10 if it turns out that they're feasible to do. So that is included. We have pothole repairs, again, local money coming back to your jurisdictions. In public transportation, the thing I wanted to highlight is Coachella Valley Rail. I don't know how many of you have heard that we have been working for a very long time on trying to advance rail from Los Angeles all the way out to Coachella Valley, out to the city of Coachella. The project has reached a pretty significant milestone. We are ready to start the environmental document for it, and what that would allow is daily rail service, Los Angeles to Coachella, and we would have stops, more than likely, Los Angeles, Fullerton, Riverside, maybe somewhere in San Bernardino-ish, Loma Linda-ish, up here in the pass, Palm Springs, Indio, and Coachella, maybe another station out in Coachella. It's about $1.5 billion project that would allow us to have rail service that could be used. That's another question we get frequently out in this area is, why can't we have rail too? Why do we have to drive to Redlands? Why do we have to drive to San Bernardino or Riverside? Well, Coachella Valley Rail is included in this plan as well. We have included an I-10 bypass. There's a whole section of Interstate 10 in Cabazon that has no local parallel road. So if an incident happens on I-10 and closes I-10 out, I-10 down in Cabazon, everyone is stuck there. There's been example after example of I-10 closing down for extended periods of time and people are trapped. So the county has an I-10 bypass project that is also in need of a significant amount of money. So that is another project that's included in the plan. We have realigning State Route 79. I mentioned State Route 79 that connects in Beaumont at I-10 and runs all the way to Temecula. We've got another project there that would build a new corridor connecting Lambs Canyon with Temecula. So these are just a few of the projects that we have currently included in the plan. What we ask of you, as well as your constituents and your team, take a look at the plan of what we're showing in the plan, and does that resonate with your community? Are we hitting the key projects and programs that are important to your community with respect to transportation? So I talked before about the fact that this plan is not funded, and it's not. $25 billion is projected that a 1 cent sales tax increase could generate over an approximate 30-year period. And it's a lot of money. It's probably about $600 million a year in today's dollars. But we would need to have the voters approve a sales tax measure in order for that revenue to be generated. Our commission has not made any decisions yet about whether or not the commission will put something on the ballot for voters to decide in November of 2024 whether or not a sales tax measure is appropriate. The first step in that endeavor is to actually have a traffic relief plan that reflects the community and the community's priorities and needs. So no decision has been made by the commission yet, and the first step is the traffic relief plan. So it's important to note that if we're going to be talking about raising taxes and raising taxes locally, that we talk about accountability. One of the things that has been so successful about not only our sales tax measure here, but in the 24 other counties throughout the state, is that this money is controlled locally by locally elected officials who are directly accountable to their constituents, as opposed to state and federal funding, which is not within the control of local elected officials. And what we have seen with Measure A is that we have been able to, A, be accountable, but also with locally generated funding, we've been able to go after state and federal funding, just using an example. Existing Measure A has used $600 million of Measure A highway money to build more than $6.5 billion worth of projects. So having our own money gives us the ability to seek state and federal money with the matching funds. So,
Excuse me.
yep,
You know, with this tax, what guarantees, I know you've helped us out, you know, quite a bit with Cherry Valley, you know, and a little bits here and there, and we appreciate that. But it seems like over the last, I've been here 30, 40 years, all the money's gone to the west. You know, and it's, you know, you got more houses, you got more people, but the cost for an interchange is the same. You know, and you're talking about, you know, there was a big push to extend 79, starting at the other end, bringing it this way. What do you do with it when you get to Beaumont? That's just dead end. You know, it makes no sense. And it seems like there's a lack of thought there.
so one of the challenges with having local control of a significant amount of money is that our board has had to prioritize, and generally the priorities have been based on where the greatest congestion is. So you are right. The majority of funding that has been spent on the 91 corridor, on the I-15 corridor, on the 215 corridor. That's where the greatest traffic volumes are. That's where the worst congestion have been. And I think the problem we're stuck in, or the situation we're stuck in, is that the projects we built there within the past 12 years needed to be built 25 years ago.
Correct.
So now what we're seeing up here in the pass is the homes are here, more homes are coming, more industrial development is coming, and these interchanges up here should have been rebuilt more than a decade ago to be able to be built before the people got here. And that's unfortunately the state that we're in that we are constantly playing catch up. So part of the problem, not problem, but part of the issue has been, how do you decide where to prioritize the funding? With respect to 79, yes, a decision has been made to start at the very south end of 79 in Winchester. It's the first segment. At the same time, our board has also highlighted that the 1079 interchange is a significant issue. Beaumont has actually set aside, I think, about $500,000 to get started on a project study report there to look at that interchange. And we are also trying to look at what we would need to do there as a part of our I-10 study. So my guess is that within the next couple of years, we'll be identifying a pretty big project at the 1079 interchange. But again, it's probably hundreds of millions of dollars, and we'll need to get the money for it. So I can't disagree with you about the fact that it seems like money is spent other places. It is. I would say that the I-10 corridor has risen to a level of prominence at the commission, where if this traffic relief plan is approved, I think I-10 is going to be one of the next main corridors where money will be spent. I think the fact that the Coachella Valley now very much understands that all roads to and from the Coachella Valley run through this pass. The level of congestion, both westbound and eastbound, is reaching a level where it's impacting their economy as well. So I think there's some natural partners here now where there's more of a drumbeat about I-10. Yeah, more of a drumbeat about I-10.
Can I ask a question? A lot of our people that live here in Calamasa, Yucaipa, Beaumont, Banning, they complain about the bottlenecking coming up the grade into Yucaipa. Is that ever going to be expanded?
So Yucaipa, the Yucaipa grade, our colleagues in San Bernardino County Transportation Authority, they have a project coming up that grade. I don't know the status of it off the top of my head, but they do have a project coming up the grade. It doesn't carry beyond County Line Road, and if it does, it doesn't go much further than County Line, but they do have a project coming up the grade, so that it for sure is a bottleneck. When we talk about the existing RCTC sales tax measure, we have always assumed that we're in Riverside County, there'll need to be a truck lane of some kind, probably closer to the 1060 interchange. So that whole stretch, maybe from Oak Valley all the way up to the 1079 probably needs a significant amount of construction in order to make it operate better, because it doesn't operate well right now. So I think the challenges here are becoming obvious to those who don't even live here, I guess is another way to say that. In terms of the accountability to the taxpayers, again, it goes back to local decisions, local voices, and at the state and federal level, they are not really in the business of funding highway improvements anymore. Even interchange improvements are getting harder and harder to seek state and federal funding for. And that puts us in a situation of having to scramble to get the money to get all of these built. So I talked about a 1 cent sales tax and what it would mean in terms of revenue generated. And we just picked a 30-year period just for reference. $25 billion projected revenue over that time frame, supporting both direct and indirect jobs, creating workforce income, and also generating economic output. One of the things that we clearly hear from business owners and companies who are trying to decide whether or not they're going to keep their business here in Riverside County or start a business here in Riverside County, it's where's their workforce? And can they afford to have their business here, and can they get to and from their business? So there is potential with additional investment here that there's an opportunity to draw more businesses to Riverside County where people live. Because more and more people are moving further and further inland so they can afford a home, they can afford their mortgage, and they still work in Orange County or they still work in Los Angeles. And we also need to try to bring more people working home here in Riverside County, even in the Inland Empire. That $25 billion projected over 30 years, $20 billion of it, so the majority of it would be here in western Riverside County. The majority of the population in Riverside County is here in western Riverside County. About $5 billion to Coachella Valley and $100 million to Blythe. So I talked about the public survey that we did at the very beginning, where we asked people about their perspectives related to the most critical needs. The other thing we did was we asked them about funding. And the first question we asked, where 82% of the respondents said that they see a need for transportation funding. That was just a generic question. Do you see a need for more transportation funding? And 82% of the people in the poll said they saw a need for additional funding. We didn't ask specifically what kind of funding. We just said, do you see a need for funding? And the answer was overwhelmingly yes. We then in the poll asked the question about would they be willing to tax themselves up to 1% sales tax to pay for the improvements that they saw and heard about in the plan. 67% of Riverside County voters support a transportation funding measure. And here in the past, Calamasa, Beaumont, Banning, and the surrounding areas, the answer was 66%. This was a poll that was done a year ago, almost a year ago, in May. So you can see from the information that we've shared, what those numbers tell us is that transportation, congestion, safety, potholes, vehicle repair costs, all of those items have an impact on whether people believe they're willing to pay for it themselves in order to get the work done. I have shared an awful lot of information with you. I've given you hard copies of the traffic relief plan, but I want you to know and want your constituents to know there are many ways to view the plan as well as to share your feedback. That QR code that's right up there on the screen, if someone zooms in on that, it will take you directly to the traffic relief plan, 2024 traffic relief plan that's on the website. We have a website, trafficreliefplan.org. The plan is there, it's interactive, you can click on different parts of the county to see what improvements are in that area. We are conducting social media. We issued a press release today trying to expand our reach to folks, asking for people to provide comments. We are getting terrific comments in. We really are, from all over the county, with people highlighting their priorities, their beefs, things they're upset about, things they want to see happen, their frustrations. But most importantly, we're getting really important feedback that we need to develop the plan. People can contact us either by phone. We have an email address set up just for this effort, and there's also a comment box on our website that people can just fill out as well. So, and we're on social media. So feedback is important. We expect the commission to be taking comments on this plan through March, and then they'll consider the plan for final approval in April. And then commission may or may not make a decision about a sales tax. If they do that, it probably wouldn't be until June. With that, I'll complete my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Yeah, I have a
I have some too, but go ahead.
In regards to the rail project, is there any numbers? How many people, I mean, it's a cool idea. I like the idea. And how many people actually ride it? I mean, do we have enough people to support it?
So, I mean, it's not a service that's there now. Well, let me take that back.
But I mean, well, Redlands has it, so.
Well, Amtrak runs the Sunset Limited through there now. I think it's 3 times a week. It stops in Palm Springs, and it stops, I think, I don't know where it stops in LA County other than LA Union Station. It is perpetually late, sometimes up to 24 hours, because the Sunset Limited runs all the way across the country on the same track as freight. So the delays are significant, and it makes it in through our area at, in the middle of the night. So very few people ride the existing Sunset Limited. Our goal with this train would be that we've got trains coming in both directions, morning and evening. Will people get on the train? It's the Coachella Valley, a huge tourist destination. One of the things we hear most frequently is that there are so many people who come to the Coachella Valley, who come to this country, and think they can land at an airport and get on a train and get to Joshua Tree or get to Palm Springs. So I think some of this is very forward-looking in terms of what do we think the future's going to be. What I can guarantee the future won't be is it won't be that we're going to be building freeways and expanding them and expanding them. That's not how people are going to move. We cannot build our way out of this with freeways. We've got to have an alternative. Express lanes will give us the ability to run buses up and down I-10, for example. A lower cost, more likely to reach some of the more local people. I think rail has a huge future here. The question is, will people ultimately switch over to rail? And the only way they'll do it is if it works for them.
Yeah.
Can they take a train at the time?
Wi-Fi on all the
And-
trains so people could work there, and
Yeah.
security. I mean, just going to
Right.
San Bernardino to hop on the train can be a little bit scary.
Yes. Yeah, and they would be longer, they wouldn't be short commute trains, they would be longer distance trains like an Amtrak train now.
Right.
So luggage, Wi-Fi, not sure if it'll have like
A
the
little
dining
bit more
car or not,
security
but
would be good, too.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you for your presentation, Ann. Very helpful and thorough, and I actually really enjoyed reading through this traffic relief plan. I found it really interesting and forward-thinking in a lot of ways, so I did find that as well. So I wanted to circle back to the question that Wendy had about the bottleneck coming through here, the pass area, and everybody knows it's, I mean, I would put that up with one of the more congested areas in the county, certainly at rush hour times. It's ridiculous. And so from what I'm hearing you say, and so I just want a little bit more clarification, is that widening the freeway, at least through Calamasa, to to Beaumont is not likely going to happen anytime soon.
Correct.
However, express lanes are a possibility, and by express lanes, you mean not toll lanes,
No, toll
but
lanes.
the toll lanes. So something like a fast track. that
Fast track,
we see
like-
in- And those would be privately funded, or they would be built by a plan like this?
So I would expect it to be similar to what we did on the 91 and I-15. So the 91 express lanes and the I-15 express lanes are owned and operated by RCTC. So they are governed by the RCTC board. We leased the median from Caltrans for 50 years
Yeah.
on each one of them. So I would expect it to be similar. What we did for those, and what I would expect something on I-10, we would probably need to use some seed money coming from this plan. The goal would be, though, that project would generate enough revenue to pay back loans. So on both the 91 and I-15, we got federal loans to build the project, and now the revenue we earn, that people pay when they use the express lanes, goes to pay back the debt. So I would expect it to be a combination of cash and debt to build it.
I see, yeah. Interesting, and so that is, you said being discussed in circles, it's gaining popularity in attention in the county?
It is. We were asked a year ago when we were directed to update this plan, we were also directed to look at the I-10 corridor for what options were possible along the corridor. Express lanes were specifically mentioned, as were operational improvements like adding auxiliary lanes. So those are
Yeah.
lanes between an on-ramp and an off-ramp, so people don't merge, try to merge on with traffic going 65 miles an hour. They're doing that in a lane that's running between the on and off ramps. And we're looking at what we could maybe do at the 1060 interchange as well as the 1079.
Yeah.
So we've been directed
Important.
to look at it. We're doing initial feasibility studies. We're looking at, does a reversible lane make sense? Does one lane in each direction make sense? What are the options out there? What can physically be built out there at the lowest cost?
And that's included in this plan under the express lane discussion?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
I didn't see it explicitly mentioned, but
Yeah.
it's,
It would be, express lanes would be eligible under this plan.
okay. So I found an interesting section where it talked about small rural communities, and I was wondering how that might apply to a place like Calamasa. In particular, it says that prioritization of investment shall take into account the needs of residents in small and rural communities. And so I'm wondering what's envisioned by that?
So part of that is related to the connectivity issue I was talking about before, where we have communities in Riverside County, not just in Western County, that have no access to an interstate or a state highway at all. I'll even use Blythe as an example. A $300,000 project in Blythe is like a $300 million project in another jurisdiction. So the goal of the plan is to make sure that money is invested across the board, to the point that the mayor raised earlier about so much of the money gets spent in the larger jurisdictions with the greatest populations, and oftentimes those are the jurisdictions that actually have the biggest general funds or biggest budgets compared to their rural partners. So I think for Calamasa, a lot of that would be from my perspective, and this is just my perspective, may not be yours, is that the challenges you face related to the interchanges has a real impediment to your community in that, and all in the past. When I-10, I-15, and I-215 were built, they were built without local frontage roads. And so all of these jurisdictions, the only way across the freeway, as you know, what you have to experience, the only way through is at interchanges. And I would argue that rural and less populated area. I don't know that Calamasa technically qualifies as rural anymore, but I would say communities like this are really hindered by not having access back and forth across. I don't think you'd qualify as real rural
Okay,
anymore,
okay.
though.
I wanted to see how you were
Yeah,
that
and-
was being understood and interpreted.
Yeah,
Okay.
and just see, the federal government actually has a definition of what an urban transportation area is versus rural. So when you talk about competing for federal funds, like probably, I don't know, Will's nodding, so if you were going to try and compete for federal funds in a rural category, you probably wouldn't.
No,
be able to
we do fall under the larger, you know, your urban area, Riverside, San Bernardino, Ontario, we fall under that, in that jurisdiction.
I reject that category. No.
I don't necessarily agree with it either, but
Yeah.
them's are the rules.
Yeah, those are the
Those
rules. Got to play by them, right?
Those are the rules.
So one quick question. I don't want to monopolize all the time here. I'm sure my fellow council members have some questions for you too. You mentioned the rail line, and I actually like, and Wendy was talking about this as well, I like the idea. I think it's if you build it, they will come sort of idea. I think we will adjust and we'll see people, millennials and so forth, are already looking for these sort of options and are changing their lifestyle in transportation, ways of transportation in interesting ways, and I think it will be a way to alleviate traffic. And so you mentioned that there's going to be a stop somewhere in the pass area. Now, is that just a hypothetical, or has that been decided that there will be? Is it just really abstract right now, nothing concrete?
There will be a stop in the pass.
Okay.
So we've already spent $12 million in multiple years doing the first service development plan that's required, and what's called a Tier 1 environmental document, which was just, is this feasible? Is the ridership there? And could we have service that could compete with a car? So the threshold has been, and it might be slightly off, a 3.5-hour trip. It's either 3.5 hour or 3 hour, I think it's 3.5 hour trip, all the way from Coachella to LA Union Station. That has been kind of the benchmark that this train trip has to be competitive enough that someone would say, I'm not driving, I don't want to
Right.
drive in, I'm taking the train, because I'll get there in 3.5 hours and I can enjoy the Wi-Fi and I can go have a hot dog.
Yeah.
So it's got to be competitive. So when we did that, we actually established potential station areas and actually did train schedule. So we've actually got potential schedules for the train showing where the stops would be, showing to prove
Right.
to the federal government that we could make it in that 3.5 hours. A number of years ago, the past cities all got together and agreed and sent me a letter saying that Cabazon was the stop.
Cabazon.
Cabazon was the stop.
Okay.
That Cabazon was the stop. It probably makes the most sense if you think about where is their land for a stop. And the other important thing about stops, so there's in the Coachella Valley, there's conversation about a mid-valley stop. Multiple cities want stops. But the point is, if we're going to have a train that draws riders, you have to put the stations where the people are.
Yeah.
So Cabazon probably makes the most sense when you think about where people want to go. Densities of people that want to go, the whole Cabazon area, the whole Cabazon specific plan that's being worked on right now, it probably makes the most sense. So I share that in that at one time, there was consensus in the past as to where that would go.
Right.
What we will do is we will go through a ridership analysis looking at where the potential riders are. We can't spend $1.5 billion to bring rail and then put the stations where the people aren't. So, but there's no doubt in my mind, there will be one in the pass.
And you don't want to have too many stops either, because that will cut into the travel time.
Correct.
Frustrate.
Correct.
Be very strategic with the stops.
Right.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to make a comment. When we have our commission meetings, we're talking about people from Temecula all the way to Blythe. And so we all give our input on, we all kind of start, well, what's important to me where I live, but we all have to consider what's good for everyone, what will be acceptable, what will be funded. So a lot of time has been put into this. All the questions that we're asking here, those are just, those are repeated over many, many, many times. But many people ask me, why can't we just add a lane to the freeway like they did in the 210? And I said, well, we don't have the land to purchase to add a lane. So they think that's a simple fix, but there is no simple fix. And so it's what's going to work. And so the train has received a lot of attention and funding, and seems like the most logical thing. And if you ever ride the train from LA from out here to LA, you can get so much done, and it's a nice ride, and it's effective, and people don't work 9 to 5 anymore. They work all hours of, 24 hours around the clock. And so that seems the most logical. That seems to be getting a lot of the support from everyone.
It does. And I think, to your point about freeway widening, it is, you just drive down the freeway and look at what's coming up closer and closer to the freeway. It's physically and financially getting more and more difficult to widen, and the majority of the freeways in Riverside County are now at the point they're not going to be able to be widened much, if at all. And we talk about the train, and I want to go back to the express lanes a little bit in that, if we can't widen freeways, and the trains may not work for everybody, what do? We sit in traffic. So one of the other things about express lanes that we've demonstrated success with, specifically on the 91, is that express lanes allow us to run express bus service. So when we opened up the 91 express lanes, RTA put Route 200 into service, and Route 200 is an express lane service that actually starts San Bernardino, downtown Riverside, and then on into Orange County, and goes to multiple employment centers in Orange County. So it goes to Irvine, it goes to Anaheim. That bus was packed pre-COVID. Those buses were packed. RTA was adding more and more service, and why were they packed? Because they were nice commuter buses with Wi-Fi, with nice seats, less than $3 each way. And so for the first time, people in a bus had a reliable, predictable trip heading in and out of Orange County. I-15, we're extending further south to Lake Elsinore. San Bernardino is going north up to, I think it's up to Foothill Boulevard. San Bernardino County this year is going to be opening their express lanes that run from the LA County line into Ontario. Their next project, I think, runs from the 15 interchange into the Colton area. I may be slightly off on that. So one thing about express lanes, if we can get them all connected, we can run express bus services that give people an option other than being in their car.
Thank you.
Just a couple quick questions. Just on that same topic of public transportation, the stuff that you do operate in Riverside County for bus and rail, how successful has that been or currently?
So bus ridership is coming back. COVID had a huge impact on transit, both bus transit and rail. Bus transit is coming back at a faster rate than rail. RTA is actually trying out different types of bus transit. So they're doing micro transit down in Hemet, where it's more of like, you dial up and say, I need, on demand, thank you, Linda. On-demand service, I'll be at this bus stop at this time, and the bus comes and picks people up and takes them where they need to go. That is proving to be much more successful than running a 40-foot empty bus from stop to stop to stop at a time when people aren't using it. So RTA is looking at how they can expand microtransit, so it's more on-demand, more personalized service. Is bus transit still a concern? Sure. Safety concerns. A lot of people say, I'm not going to ride the bus because I don't feel safe, or I'm not going to ride the bus because I'm not going to go stand out on a street corner with no shelter, with no bench. So I think transit has a bit of a challenge post-COVID coming back. Rail is very much struggling on the Metrolink system. Rail Metrolink system is probably running at about 42% of pre-COVID numbers in terms of ridership. The average demographic of a Metrolink rider used to be someone who made more than $75,000 a year, had at least one car at home, if not two, and used it to commute. They did it, it was a choice, made it a little bit easier. That is no longer the average demographic on a Metrolink train. It is now people who don't have a vehicle at home. Average income has dropped significantly. What's fascinating, though, and I think cause for optimism, is the number of students on the trains now, and same on the buses. Students are now riding free right now on Metrolink. 25% of the monthly pass holders now are students. So I think what we need to all do is start getting smarter about who we're trying to serve, and it's students and seniors, disabled, specialized transit. Those are the focus areas to try to grow transit ridership some more, and then also be smarter about how we're providing service. Because people don't ride if it's not convenient and not going when they want to. It's kind of the chicken and the egg. You cut service because no one's on the bus, well then no one's going to be on the bus because you don't even have the bus there.
And how does that factor in if they're operating at, losses, or how does that factor into the budget and the future decisions for the transportation?
Okay. So on the Metrolink side, subsidies from agencies like ours, so there's 5 agencies that form Metrolink. It's Riverside, San Bernardino, Orange County, LA, and Ventura. So the 5 transportation commissions, we are Metrolink. There's a separate agency, but we are the funding agencies. About pre-COVID, about 50% of the Metrolink budget came from us. So we subsidized Metrolink 50%. Buses, mostly subsidized in the 80 to 90%. RTA does great. RTA does really, really well. They're up over 20% of fare box recovery, so the revenue they get. Transit is very heavily subsidized. Rail, less than bus. And how does it factor in? I would say it's one of the reasons why our public transit component in this plan is as high as it is, to make sure that we have the money to provide all of those services, because the funding won't come from other places. Same thing with the environmental mitigation. If funding transit is considered a mitigation, that's another reason why that bucket is as big as it is.
So is it kind of expected that portions of it are going to always be subsidized essentially, or is the hope that it would be subsidized a little less?
I don't know that bus transit will ever pay for itself. The majority of people who are using bus transit, you would never have any riders if they had to pay to cover the full cost. So I don't know of any, I would be happy to be corrected. I don't know of any bus transit entity that is self-sufficient without subsidies, and I don't know of any rail entity in the country that is self-sustaining. In order to do that, the fares would have to be astronomical.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the way that the breakdown that you had for public transportation, it's kind of already kind of baked in there, is factored in, is part of the equation that it's going to be subsidized the way
It is.
part of the plan. Okay.
And we do receive, so I know I complained a little bit, maybe more than a little bit, about state policy and a lack of state funding on highway projects. The state of California and the federal government actually do put billions of dollars into public transportation operations. Last year alone, I think it was $5 billion over several years here in California, supplemental to what we already have. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I guess one other comment, Blythe, for example, in the Blythe part of this plan, their goal is to make transit free. 100% subsidized transit in Blythe. And many agencies are looking at doing similar. Because the return is never going to be very high. But it's important for Blythe, for example, to provide those services to their residents.
Thank you for taking the time to visit.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for your engagement and your time and your questions. We really, really appreciate it. So thank you very much. And again, lots of information available, and Will knows how to find me. And happy to serve Calamasa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council members reporting of county and regional meetings. John?
I appreciate the presentation. That was in depth. I did not attend any regional meetings, so that'll conclude my report.
Linda?
Yes, on February 7th, I attended the RTA Budget and Finance Committee and Board meeting, and it was all routine bus activity. On February 12th, the Riverside Division of Cal Cities had their executive committee meeting. It was a Zoom meeting, and we discussed how we're going to pull the county together. I missed the chamber meeting, the RCTC meeting, and the South Mesa Pipeline because I had a really bad sinus infection. I was ill. And but on February 15th, there was a joint division meeting between San Bernardino County and Riverside County, first ever, where we had all of these cities represented, and we're working together. Collaboration is what's happening right now, and we're looking at sharing expenses and we're all going after the same dollar. So that was something exciting. I attended the President's Day parade in Indio. It was a lot of fun. It was 75 degrees. It was so hot there yesterday. It was raining here all day. But I represented Calamasa. And for announcements, April 17th through the 19th in Sacramento are the legislative days. And so I would like to go to that. And I think I was talking to Mike, and I said we should draft letters to our legislators and hand deliver them. This is a lucky deer, and we need to get their attention on what our issues are. And SCAG is having their annual conference May 2nd through 3rd. And both Darlene and I attend the Riverside Division of Cal Cities member meetings as well as exec committee meetings. The next one is March 14th. It's supposed to be at the Cheech Marine Museum, but I just got a communication today, I don't know if you got word, that it's too expensive to have there. It's too expensive to hold revenues. We're just coming back from COVID. A lot of cities are finding it hard to find venues that don't cost so much that it doesn't really make sense to have it. It defeats the purpose. So it's going to be on the same date, but they're looking for a new venue. And that's all I have.
Jeff?
I did not attend any regional meetings, so I don't have a report this time.
Okay, thank you. Wendy?
I was not required to attend any WRCOG meetings, and I do not have a report.
Well, thank you. Let's see what the city manager's got to say.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, a couple of reports. The spay and neuter clinic that we're hosting here with the Riverside County Animal Control has been completely booked up. That's why they tell us not to advertise these things too far in advance because they fill up very, very quickly. But we will be having another one soon, so I advise people that wanted to get in on this one to keep a lookout on our social media pages, and we'll advertise the next one when that comes out. So we're looking forward to that event on Saturday, March 2nd. And I did want to address one item on the Roberts Road. this has been obviously something that a lot of residents have reached out to us on, and it is a complicated issue because, you know, when development happens and they're obligated to, you know, put in certain infrastructure, and then work stops, we certainly can compel them to hold up their end of the bargain, that when they agreed, we had approved a development, they, you know, complete the improvements that they're obligated to complete. But if they're not constructing, we can't compel them to continue work, right? If they're not building anything. So the city is certainly engaged with the owners at Oak Valley Town Center to try to get that work going as quickly as possible, because that is a very important and vital project for the city. So it is something that staff has been actively working on and has been working on since work has stopped. So I just wanted to give that quick update. That completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'll close the meeting and we'll go to closed session. I'm sorry, Kevin, you wanted to...
That's all right. So
I-
you're going to recess into closed session for the one item under A, which is conference of legal counsel and anticipated litigation, one case, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.